What's going on, everybody? We are back with our quarterback rankings series, I guess you can call it, because this is our third video. We're going to go through quarterbacks 9 to 1, and joined by my father, Jeff. How's it going, Dad?
Hey, how's it going? We're down to the top quarterbacks now, and gets a little harder to kind of rank these last group of guys, but we'll do our best.
Yeah, definitely. It does get harder, but this is for redraft, like we mentioned, not for dynasty or anything. So this is specifically to the 2023 season. We'll kind of recap what we've gone through, 24 through 10. And we'll get right into it with our top 9. So real quick, going through 24, started with Bryce Young, came in at 24 for us. A couple guys, by the way, that missed the list: Jimmy Garoppolo, Tannehill, Pickett, Mac Jones. These guys are right outside the top 24. But 24th is Bryce Young. And then we have Jordan Love and Brock Purdy that are tied. Derek Carr is 21, Matt Stafford 20, Geno Smith 19. Russell Wilson and Kirk Cousins were tied for us. They're 18th and 17th, respectively. Jared Goff, Anthony Richardson, our second rookie on the list. Anthony Richardson's 15th. Aaron Rodgers, 14th. Tua, 13th. Daniel Jones and Dak Prescott tied, 12th and 11th. And then Kyler Murray came in at number 10. This is assuming that everyone's healthy, by the way. It is May 22nd, so we're just getting into OTAs. We're not going to know probably if Kyler's going to be starting the beginning of the year. Probably not until August. Same with Brock Purdy. Maybe not until August. So rankings will change. We'll do an updated one, mid to late August before the season starts. But yeah, we're going to get into the top 9. The reason we have 9 is because the first guy on our list is actually tied with the next 2. So the first guy here is Trevor Lawrence. I had him ranked 9th. Dad, you had him ranked 7th. So you like Lawrence a little more. What are you expecting from Trevor Lawrence in 2023?
Yeah, I think I'm buying into the hype. He improved the second half of the year, then he kind of led the Jaguars to beat the Chargers in that playoff game, and he it's going to be his second year with the coach, Doug Peterson. So I got to think that matters a little bit, and I think this guy's probably going to be the real deal, So
yeah,
we'll see. It takes a whole team, to do it, but definitely the quarterback, is the leader of that. So.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm a little lower on him. I mean, I still have him 9th, but I was even debating having a guys like Kyler or Dak, and even maybe Daniel Jones over them. And maybe that will change as I think about it more, and we have our final rankings. It's just there's something about Trevor Lawrence where it's I think he's a good player, and he led Jacksonville to the playoffs and won a playoff game. And but in terms of for fantasy, I'm just is he going to make that jump to 35 plus touchdowns and 45 plus, 4,500 plus yards? I don't know yet. I'm just not sure if he can get there. He can turn the ball over a little bit too much. I mean, his rookie year, he had 17 interceptions. Last year, he only had 8, which was really good. But also we saw in that playoff game, he had 5, right? Or something ridiculous. So he has that ability to really, really turn the ball over. And he hasn't shown as much of a rushing ability that I thought maybe he would coming out. I thought he'd be more of a 400 plus yard rusher rather than, his basically 334 his rookie year, 290. So about 300 a year he's averaging. So thought he would average maybe 100, 150 more. Maybe he will, but I don't know. He's a guy that I find hard to place because it's he's not rushing like Daniel Jones, and he's not, he hasn't shown the capability of throwing 37 touchdowns like Dak Prescott has. So it makes me want to think should I have those guys higher? Higher than Lawrence, but
kind of reminds me of how we felt about Matthew Stafford in a way. This is when he's back in Detroit. You look at his numbers and you go, that's not bad, but in the fantasy world, was he putting up 25, 30 points for you a game? And not consistently. So maybe Trevor Lawrence, maybe he's in the same category. That's just my thought on that.
No, I agree with that. And it's just we've talked about it a lot. If you're not running a lot, now again, he is getting 300 yards rushing, which is not, that makes a little bit of an impact. Over 17 games, that's about 17 and a half yards. So basically you're tacking on 1.5 points for rushing every game, which is solid. But if you're not rushing for 500 yards, in order to be a top tier quarterback, you kind of have to throw close to 40 touchdowns and, over 4,500 yards. You really have to look at Justin Herbert in 2021. He was QB2. He averaged 23.
We lost. You kind of froze there for about 15 seconds.
Where'd you lose me?
Well, we were talking about rushing points and things like that. So,
yeah. So just saying, if you're not going to be a guy who rushes for 500 or so yards, in order to be a top tier fantasy quarterback from just your passing, you need close to 40 touchdowns and over 4,500 yards. And I was talking about with Justin Herbert in 2021, he was QB2. He averaged 23.3 fantasy points, and he threw 37 touchdowns and 5,000 yards. That's what you need to do. Can he get there? Can Lawrence get there? He had 5,000 yards and 38 touchdowns. Herbert had that year. Can Lawrence get to that?
Kind of like Joe Burrow numbers. I think Joe Burrow had about 44 or 45 touchdowns last year, I think.
Yeah, he had 35.
Oh, well, crap.
Yeah. But that's kind of the number. Burrow was QB4. 35 touchdowns, 4,500 yards. That's basically what we just said. You need 4,500 yards, 35 plus touchdowns to get into that top 6 tier, I guess, but we have him at 9. So I think it's fair to have him at 9. We do have him tied with a couple other guys. Deshaun Watson coming in at number 8. I believe I was a little higher on Watson. Oh no, we were both 8. We were both 8 on Watson. Dad, tell us about Watson and why you'd feel confident with him as your guy.
Wow, you'd have to go back a couple of years. Of course, we all know the stories about Deshaun Watson, and hasn't really played a full season of football, at least 2 seasons. He played 6-7 games last year or something, but so his last year in Houston, he was the man. So I know the team kind of stunk, and he was slinging the ball all over the yard and stuff like that. So, and he has the ability to run. The problem is, I think we slightly seen that in Cleveland last year. So now he's got a couple of wide receivers. I think that should help him out. He's got Amari Cooper, and then they got somebody else. I forgot.
Then Peoples-Jones, Elijah Moore.
Yeah, Elijah Moore. So then Njoku. So it should be there. We should see a top 10 fantasy quarterback in Deshaun Watson this year. Coaching staff is stable, and they haven't changed the offense, so they can't throw that BS on us. So let's hope Deshaun Watson does it.
Yeah. I mean his 2020 year was pretty ridiculous. He finished QB5 that year, averaged 23.5 points, which was what Herbert was averaging when he was QB2. So that 2021 was a little down year for quarterbacks. But anyways, he averaged 23.5. He led the league in passing yards with 4,800 yards. He had 33 touchdowns passing, only 7 interceptions. And he's one of the few guys that can do that. 45, again, you want 4,500 plus yards and 35 plus touchdowns. But he can also run for, 400, 500 yards, which he did 3 straight years in Houston, 2018 to 2020. He ran 550, 413, 444 yards. And even last year, he played in 6 games for Cleveland. He ran for 175 yards. So if you extrapolate that over 17 seasons, that's 490, or 17 games, that's 495 rushing yards.
That's pretty good.
So
yeah.
He was still running. Yeah. He was still giving you basically 30 rushing yards a game. That's significant, Now his passing was down, but the guy hadn't played since 2020, right? So it's like, what can you really, really expect from him? And I think his last game, he looked good. He played Pittsburgh, who I believe was trying to win to make the playoffs. So it's not like they were just laying down. He threw for 230 yards and 2 touchdowns. And you add that with his 44 yards rushing, like you're getting good numbers there. You're getting, what is that, 4, 8, 9, you're getting, that's 25 points right there that you're getting in 6-point passing touchdown. So, yeah, he has that. There's not many guys on that list. It's like Mahomes, Josh Allen. I don't even think Jalen Hurts can put up those type of passing numbers. Obviously, he's more of a different runner. It's like Allen and Mahomes are like the only guys really, and maybe Herbert, but I don't think he's going to run that much. It's like Mahomes, Allen, and Watson are like the 3 guys that can throw for 4,800 yards and 35 touchdowns and also run for 500 yards. Those, unless I'm missing anyone, Dad, those are kind of the only 3 guys I can think of that can do that. Maybe Kyler, but probably not this year. So, our next guy, though, again, all 3 of these guys are tied. Justin Fields, who ran for a ridiculous amount of yards last year. I think he almost broke the single season record. He ran for 1,143 yards and 8 touchdowns. So he was an RB1 basically, and then his passing was all extra.
Yeah, he was ridiculous in running last year.
Yes,
he got punished too. So he got banged up and got hurt. I know he played in 15 games, but there was a few games where he wasn't exactly right. So I know shoulder and things like that, but those are ridiculous numbers for a quarterback. Not sure if it's sustainable. Is it going to be the same this year? Yeah, probably not, but he's going to have, I wouldn't be shocked if he had 800 yards or something this year. I guess you'd like to see, he only had 2,240 passing yards last year. We'd like to see that more like 3,800 or 3,600 and, some of those numbers a little better, but.
Yeah. You want to see essentially, probably ideally what you want to see is basically what Jalen Hurts did last year. And Jalen Hurts he actually finished QB1 in terms of average, but he missed 2 games. So he finished QB3, but he would have been QB1 if he didn't miss those 2 games. And he's not super far off. Jalen Hurts ran for 750 yards. He had 13 rushing touchdowns, which is a lot. But in terms of the passing, it's 3,700, like you said, and 22 touchdowns. And I think Fields can do that. They've built a competent receiving core around him. They got Darnell Mooney there. They got Chase Claypool. They brought in DJ Moore. You got Cole Kmet. You got I know they drafted someone too, I thought, but I don't know if they're going to make a big difference this year. But, those three receivers and Cole Kmet, it's like, okay, like it's not what it was last year where it was Darnell Mooney and then like Byron Pringle was wide receiver 2. It's okay, Claypool and Mooney and DJ Moore and Kmet, I can see that. So, yeah, I can see him taking a step up in passing like Jalen Hurts did in 2022 when they brought in A.J. Brown, like Josh Allen did when they brought in Stephon Diggs. Now, I don't think, Fields is going to jump maybe that high, but I think he can, like you said, run for 800, throw 35, and have a combined 30 touchdowns, passing and rushing, right? And that's what you're hoping for with Fields, and I think is very, very attainable. And I think he will still run a lot. I think he will. They're not going to just completely abandon it, right? So, moving on, unless there's something else you want to say about Fields?
No, those numbers, we look back on the season, this time next year, and we see Justin Fields got, those numbers that you just talked about, and, a little less running, a little more passing, but he should be really good.
Yeah, I think so. And they upgraded the offensive line as well, which is nice. They got some running backs there. They lost Montgomery, but they brought in Deontay Foreman. They have Khalil Herbert. They drafted Roschon Johnson. So they have good enough running backs there as well to support him. So, but moving on, number 6, the guy we just talked about, Justin Herbert. I have Herbert 5, Dad. You have him 6. Are we expecting a bounce back from Justin Herbert 2022, Dad?
Yeah, we want a bounce back. This is where some of our loyalties lay in this team and this quarterback and stuff like that. But his problem, of course, why he had a down year was he got hurt, and then his wide receivers kind of were not all together at the same time, injury wise and stuff like that. So
6 games where Mike Williams and Keenan Allen played together last year, 6 or 7. So
yeah. So we're expecting we got a new offensive coordinator and the dude out of Dallas. So hopefully we can have some big numbers.
Mm-hmm.
He's definitely, we know he can do it. So
yeah. I mean, they threw. It was basically just his touchdowns. Like, he still threw for 4,700 yards. They threw the ball 700 times, but he only had 25 touchdowns. It's weird, though. I can see them and be a little bit more balanced. Like, I can see his passing yards dropping 300-ish, dropping to 43, 4,400, and them running the ball more. I mean, if you look at, again, from Kellen Moore coming over from Dallas ran the ball almost 50% of the time. Like, I can see them wanting to be a little more balanced, but that being more efficient overall for the offense, and all we want Herbert to get 35 touchdowns, right? We don't want him to throw 25 if we're drafting him this high. And I still think there's a kind of an untapped rushing potential there. We've seen him kind of win games with his legs, at least 1 or 2. The one comes to mind is the game against Pittsburgh in 2021, where he ran the ball 9 times for 90 yards. He has, like, he's not going to do that all the time, but he has that potential of, like, kind of that Deshaun Watson, Mahomes, and Josh Allen. He's not going to be as much as Josh Allen, but the Mahomes and Deshaun Watson, where they get 450 yards and they also throw 35 touchdowns. I still think there's that untapped potential with Justin Herbert, which is why I ranked him over a guy like Joe Burrow. Because I hope they use him in a smart way, a little bit more like that. Use his legs a little bit. We saw it in college too, right? So,
yeah, definitely. His last game in college in the Rose Bowl, he was running quite a bit.
Yeah. And again, we've seen him win games with his legs. Again, that Pittsburgh game. So, and then I think his first touchdown ever was like a nice rushing touchdown. Another game in 2020, he ran 9 for 66. So, like, he has that ability for sure. So, but he does fall right behind our next guy, Joe Burrow, at number 5, actually tied with Lamar Jackson. I'll start with Burrow because I am the low guy on him. I had him at 6. Dad, you had him at 3. The only thing I'll say about Burrow and why I have him behind like a guy like Lamar and Hurts, who I think, Dad, you have him ahead of those two guys, is because we kind of know Lamar and Hurts are going to run the ball and they're going to get, at least 600-700 yards rushing, I would assume. And basically what we just talked about with Herbert, with the guys that don't run the ball very much, they can have down passing touchdown years like Herbert did, dropping from 38 to 25, just because like sometimes that's just how the season goes. Like if you just watch the Chargers, it just wasn't clicking and the receivers weren't there, all of that. So that could happen with Burrow. Like he could have a good season, the team could be good, and he could throw 27 touchdowns. And like they just, for whatever reason, Joe Mixon had 18 touchdowns that year or something like that. Like that could just happen. And when you're not adding those 3.5 points rushing per game that Lamar and Hurts at least are going to give you, that's why I have Burrow behind them. But Dad, you have him at number 3. You're expecting big things from Burrow.
Yeah, I just he's got 2 marvelous wide receivers. He's got really good wide receivers that are younger, and he's got a decent running back. And I know Cincinnati's Mixon's probably not going to be there after this season, and they do run the ball pretty good, Cincinnati, and Joe Burrow's kind of just watch him play quarterback, and he's one of those guys that looks like he's got it, it's there. So he's one of the top guys in the NFL, and so I can see big things, really big things happening with Joe Burrow. So in Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah. Again, I guess my only concern is with these, especially with these top 5 guys. I had Herbert as my 5th. These top 5 guys, I can see any one of them. I think they have a good chance at finishing QB1. I just don't think Burrow can finish QB1 overall. If everyone stays healthy, I don't think Burrow can be the QB1. And I think the other 5 that I had can. I don't know if you feel differently, Dad, if you think he can be QB1. Or if you think he's more of a safe, you're kind of adding in the safe factor of him.
Yeah, QB1, I guess. Yeah, I'm not sure. I just find it hard to, him to overcome what Mahomes can do and stuff like that. So,
yeah.
But we haven't really seen, Mahomes is running and stuff like that is, I thought, let's back up for a second. I thought last year that, that Mahomes is going to have a down year. They were going to really miss Tyreek Hill, but obviously, they brought in enough people and got a good enough coaching staff and everything else. And, they were able to, make it happen all the way through. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just that lack of rushing for Burrow. Like, you're not going to get it. And And that just makes the difference, I think, between these other guys. We already mentioned it. Lamar comes in at number 4. We're both, expecting bounce back stat. You had him at 5. I had him at 4, so not much of a difference. We're expecting Lamar to be Lamar again. He kind of has. It's not like he hasn't been. He hasn't been close. His 2019 season is probably going to be his best season ever in his career. Throwing for 36 touchdowns and also rushing for 1,300 yards, or 1,200 yards. That's just, I don't see him ever doing that again. But last 2 years, he's played 12 games. He ran for 770 both years, 767, 764 both years. So you give him 5 more games, he's adding on. He's a 1,000-yard rusher 4 years in a row if he plays. I guess that's the biggest concern with Lamar is he going to play the whole year? Because he hasn't the last 2. But if he does, I expect 3,200 passing yards, maybe more this year. And I expect 35 total touchdowns, passing and rushing, and probably 700-800 yards rushing. So that gets you very high up. Dad, are you kind of expecting the same from Lamar?
Yeah, I think so. He's had, we know about the last 2 seasons, but when the guy's playing, the numbers are there and the fantasy numbers are there. You just get a little worried about him. Last year he hurt a knee. Didn't even look like he got hit hard or anything like that. And, it just kind of kept him out for a while. But if he's on the field and he's playing, then, you're going to have some pretty good numbers out of this guy,
Yeah. Yeah, he was QB5.
Yeah, I'm not sure about – I think a high end would be 30, 32 touchdowns. Lower end would maybe be 25, 26 or something. So
you talking about for total touchdowns or for passing?
No, I'm just talking about passing and
yeah, I think he passes 25 to 27 and rushes, another 7 or so. That's kind of what I'm expecting from him, But he was QB5 last year in his first 12 years or 12 weeks. So he's right behind. Right there is the QB5, and same in kind of in 2021. He was, he was kind of doing the same stuff. He averaged 21 points. So we'll see. It's all about him staying healthy, but they do bring in weapons. They got Zay Flowers. They got Bateman there. Mark Andrews, Odell Beckham, J.K. Dobbins. So they got some. He has probably the best receiving core he's had, I would say. You got Rashad Bateman was a first-round receiver. Is that right?
First round, yeah, like a late first round in the 20s or something. So
yeah. So you have back-to-back years. You draft. No, sorry, 2020. The 2 of the last 3 years, you've drafted a first-round receiver. You're bringing in Beckham, who can be, a solid wide receiver 3. You have one of the best tight ends in the league. There's kind of no excuse. You expect an uptick.
Yeah, even the second string tight end is pretty good.
Yeah, Isaiah Likely, he could be their third best weapon on the team. He's the backup tight end, but he's their third best weapon. So I do expect an uptick, less rushing, but still, I don't think he's going to get 1,000 yards like he's basically been on pace for the last 2 years, but I do think he'll get 700, but he'll have an uptick in passing yards. So
they did have a massive offensive change, philosophy, new offensive coordinator and stuff. So you might see some different stuff out of the Ravens. This coming season, that's for sure.
I think they want to. And I think we saw that with, getting Beckham and drafting Zay Flowers. So, yeah, I think there's definitely they're kind of pointing towards that way. So, top 3, you should know who they are. Coming at number 3 is Jalen Hurts. don't know really what else to say. As you probably as most already know. I mean, I guess, Dad, what we can do is talk about the top three kind of all together because I don't think we need to talk about. Everyone knows what these guys are probably going to do. Mahomes, Allen, Hurts, Josh Allen, and Jalen Hurts is our 1, 2, 3. Mahomes number 1, Josh Allen 2, Hurts 3. What's your reasoning for putting them in this order? I guess I know you had Burrow 3 technically, but what's your reasoning for having Mahomes and then Allen and then Jalen Hurts?
Yeah, Mahomes obviously he had a show me year, and he showed it. I mean, that was to me. I was thinking they were gonna be kind of going backwards a little bit, losing Tyreek Hill, but thought Kelsey would start hitting the brick wall. But geez, I was all wrong on that one. So Mahomes 5,000 yards and 40 some touchdowns. That explains it right there. Josh Allen, very, very prolific runner. I think he was over 700 yards again.
Yeah.
So, plus, he's pretty good. Pretty good with the arm. He had some. I know they kind of fell off there in the last part of the season, but still, 4,200 yards and 35 touchdowns last year in passing. And plus, 762 yards. Big numbers, Those are probably expect pretty close to being the same. Not sure if I see things changing too much. They always talk about, they have for the last 2 or 3 years, he needs to stop running, and these are all the talking heads because they don't think he's think he's going to get hurt and stuff like that, and but he hasn't. Mm-hmm. So he's and then Jalen Hurts, probably the one thing that kind of bothers me about Jalen Hurts. He had a great year last year, and got great wide receivers, but I think this is the second year in a row where I've heard he's had off-season ankle surgery. So, I just, in the back of my mind, I think, how is that going to affect him running the ball? He had 760 yards, so he was 13 touchdowns. Yes. Passing, he definitely upped his passing game last year. He's got, like I said, great wide receivers, Slim Reaper and A.J. Brown, man. So all three of those guys, Allen, Mahomes, and Hurts, they're all point getters for you.
Yeah, you can't go wrong if one of them is your quarterback. Basically, I guess the one thing, Mahomes is the safest option, and the reason why he's the safest is because most of his production comes from passing, and Mahomes is basically, I don't ever see his rushing numbers changing until he gets maybe a little bit older. He's basically like an Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers in his prime was always rushing for 300-plus yards because he just extends plays with his legs, and then if nothing's there, you just run. But he doesn't have a lot of designed runs, so you don't expect it. You don't really expect any type of dip from Mahomes. Like he's proven it year after year now, with or without Tyreek Hill. So he's the safest option. One thing I will say about Josh Allen, which actually might eventually make me drop him to 3 over and have Hurts over him, is I actually do think they're going to run the ball less with him. One, because it's the smart thing to do and preserve him. And I think he did get hurt. Like he messed up his shoulder last year, or elbow or something.
Yeah,
right?
It was his elbow. Everybody was speculating on that, that
his numbers dipped. a bit. His passing numbers.
He threw like a 70-yard pass right after he hurt it or something, but
yeah, but his numbers did kind of dip. Like I'm looking at week 7 through 13. He had in those 7 games 1,573 yards. So that was only about 225 yards a game he was averaging. And one of those was a big 330. So, he had a couple games under 200. So I think it did affect him because you look at the first 6 weeks, 300 yards, 317, 400, 213, 424, 329. And then you look at after that, he had 300, 250. So I do think that bothered him a bit. And just their moves they made, they brought in Damian Harris, they brought in Latavius Murray. It seems like these are the guys we just want to smash the ball up the middle. Like, why are we using Josh Allen for those type of plays? They'll still use his legs. I don't see him falling too far below like 500 yards rushing. But I can see him dropping a couple hundred yards rushing. And that's significant. I still think probably the touchdowns will be there a lot, so he'll need an uptick in passing. I do think they're going to run the ball less with him, and I don't think they are with like Jalen Hurts. So it's kind of why I think just something to think about with Allen. Again, you're not going to drop him too far, so because you still got to respect it. But any other words on these quarterbacks, Dad?
No, these 3 or top 4 guys, they're all money men,
Yeah. Yep, they win you leagues, that's for sure. But we will finish up there. We'll be back, I think, with some running back rankings for redraft. So, as always, we appreciate it for watching. If you like the video, subscribe to the channel. That would be great. We are at 189 subscribers. So 11 away from 200. That's our goal before June 15th. So we got 23 days to get 11 subscribers. I think we can do that. But we'll be back. Thanks again. We'll catch you guys